Okay, so let's change the setting for a moment. Instead of having one speaker, we will set up a panel with 3 interesting guests. We will discuss the fast growth of eSports and how sim racing is evolving. And first of all, I would like to introduce Xavier Maassen, professional racing driver. And he is the Formula 1 analyst for L1, but he knows mainly the stuff from the real world. Xavier Maassen, welcome. Next we have Bono. Huis. In sim racing he is what we would call an alien, and it's nothing personal, he's just bloody quick. Winner of the Formula E sim race at Las Vegas, 5 times world champion in one of the best international sim racing series and part of the McLaren Shadow program. Bono Huis, welcome. And last but certainly not least, we have Atze Kerkhof. He is co-founder at Redline Control and Experience, where he and his team provides a training ground on the simulator for real racing drivers. And furthermore, he knows how to drive a virtual racing car pretty well. Atze Kerkhof. Welcome, guys. We've got 2 microphones, and well, you guys are with 3, so let's fight. Let's fight for the microphones. Well, first of all, I would like to start with and I think I need to be standing over there, right, camera-wise, sorry. First of all, I would like to start with the question, well, Marcel put it up already. Is a sim race maybe more interesting than a real world race? Xavier?
No.
That's the only answer.
I come from the real world, so I'd say, of course, it can be interesting, but I think the one aspect that you won't get in a real simulator is the danger component, which is a very small fraction because everything else is the same. I mean, I've seen the online races. If you follow them, the same commentators there. It really looks good. But it's not real, and people crash. They press reset and start over again. And in the real world, I think that component makes it just that little bit more exciting, because if it goes wrong, yes, you can kill yourself, or you can be really harmed, or your car can be really damaged, and that makes it a little bit different.
Do you agree, Bono? Oh, that's not a wireless microphone.
Test.
It works.
Good. Yeah, I agree. The danger element is quite a big part of the spectacle. You don't get that in sim racing. I mean, you still get the crashes, of course, but there's no danger to the drivers or whatever. So that does change a lot, but it is different. I mean, you can see things in sim racing that you don't see in the actual racing part, where every car is equal and stuff like that. So you get to see in a better way which driver is the best and the quickest. And for a competition point of view, it is better. It's a lot more fair, so it just depends on what you want to see, but the spectacle is, of course, always way bigger in an actual race, yeah.
Atze, you are a training instructor at Adrenaline Control and Experience, and it's funny you mentioned about the danger aspect. I think a couple of months ago, Jacques Villeneuve, the world champion Formula 1 in '97, he mentioned that this new generation only practices on simulators or PlayStations, and they don't know any fear. Is that something you can relate on? You work with a lot of youngsters. For instance, Richard Verschoor, who is in the room, I noticed. Do you agree on that part from Jacques?
Yeah.
Good old Jacques.
I think so. Training in the simulator on a very high level, which we do, prepares the driver to be more fine-tuned when they arrive on the track. Back in the day, they didn't have it. Those words coming from Jacques Villeneuve is the same guy who made a bet to do a Rouge flat out and flipped the car and almost killed himself and spectators. So I would say maybe they are more prepared now, maybe they are more wise because of the training. And the level and overall is, of course, growing. It's getting more, a much higher level in general, because all drivers, they cannot do the racing without simulator training anymore. So for sure, it gets bigger, better, and faster. Everyone is getting more close to each other than back in the day.
I think only Lewis Hamilton and I think Kimi Räikkönen are the only drivers who say they don't use a simulator, but maybe they don't want to.
Yeah, I can't speak for them, of course, but those two are the old school drivers left on the grid, and for sure they need to use the simulator to get used to the systems in the car. So for sure they do their hours in the simulator. The steering wheel is like a massive iPad with 100 button combinations, which they need to learn, and they cannot learn that in free practice only. They need to do this in the simulator. So the whole communication part with the engineers, with the team, the strategists, everything needs to be prepared in the simulator. Hamilton maybe does that less, but his teammates take the role to make sure the team has everything prepared, and the simulator becomes actually very important tool to develop the car nowadays in Formula One. And maybe less to develop the drivers, because the drivers in F1 are already on the highest level. They already went through the whole training stages. And but nowadays, in the Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, the feeder series to Formula 1, those are the series where the simulator is used to fine-tune driving techniques, to get smarter, and you have unlimited time, and you cannot crash the car, you cannot kill yourself normally in a simulator. So yeah, it's a good tool nowadays.
You mentioned Formula type cars, but GT cars. Xavier, are you one who trains as well on the simulator?
Well, from the last couple of years, what I've most used the simulator for is for track knowledge, and as now, because I need to talk to the guys, in February I need to go to Sepang for the first time in Malaysia, for driving in the Asian Le Mans series. I've never been there. Simulator is the perfect tool. You can do 1,000 laps. It doesn't cost you a whole lot of money. You know, I've got R Factor 2. You just need to plan in the track and start training. And from there on, if you see from the past, when I did Formula cars before, I used to do it, but then the games were like really bad. Now you see laser scan tracks, everything gets so much better and so much closer to the way it is in real life. I mean, most of the tracks are laser scanned, so every little bump you feel is actually there. If you turn in earlier and you feel that there's more grip, I've seen it in tracks where I've been on the real track afterwards, and it actually worked that if you turn in earlier, that there is more grip. So the games are getting so good and so well. I mean, the gap is closing, and they keep closing it.
Bono, you're already for a long time. You're a really good sim racer. What's the main difference? Like Xavier mentioned, what's the main difference between a sim racing simulator at this moment and, for example, 10 years ago? What's the main difference?
I don't know. It's just a lot more, getting a lot more competitive anyway. A lot more people joining in, so the level is just getting higher and higher, and you have to search for new things to stay on top of the game. Can be physical training, mental training, and stuff like that, but you always need to have a little edge over the rest, and it can't be just that you rely on your talent anymore. That's what I've found out. I've been in this for a long time, yeah.
And in terms of realism? The games, the game simulator, sorry.
The technology gets better and better, so it gets closer and closer all the time. Of course, I don't have that much real racing experience, so I can't really compare how realistic it actually is. That's more for the real racers to judge, but I do believe that it gets better, and for sure the tracks are getting better with laser scans and stuff like that, so every bump that you have in real life is there in the sim as well, so for track knowledge it is perfect, yeah.
You drove a Formula 3 car, right? Like 3 years ago, I suppose. Do you use that knowledge for the development of the simulators you are using at Redline?
Yeah, it's a bit longer than 3 years ago. So I think it was
time flies,
7 years
right?
ago already.
Really?
2013.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah, they put me in a Formula 3 car.
They put me. Oh, that's the punishment.
Yeah. It was terrible. Actually, it was terrible because
really?
I couldn't feel my hands for 2 days after. My neck, I couldn't hold my neck in the corners. After 6 laps, my neck just went like this, even though I was super fit because I used to speed skate on a very high level. But yet there's a very specific strength you need for real racing to get out there and do the laps. I have to say, I got around pretty good, and it felt really natural compared to what I was used to in the simulator, because I did my prep in the simulator, of course, even for that test with the race team. And yeah, that felt natural, even when I got more comfortable to handle the walls that fly beside you and don't fear death every lap anymore, then you actually become like a robot and you do the same trick like you do in real racing. So how much do I use it for the training right now? It's of course it's a massive experience. Even though I've driven GT, I've driven the Formula car, and I hear all the feedback from the drivers, of course. And like Bono said, the technology gets better and better. The hardware gets better, like the steering wheels, the pedals, the feeling, combined with the software, gives a much better feeling of grip, and that brings it much closer to reality. And that's what we do now with the Pro Simulator, where we train guys like Richard Verschoor, who won Macau, and that deserves an applause because this guy...
Really? Yeah. But can you give me an example? Glad you started. What kind of training do you give to the real racing world drivers?
It depends on the level where they are. Like some drivers, they start from go-karting, they go to Formula cars, and then they arrive in the simulator in Holland. So we screen the level. Because I'm a good driver in the sim, so I can give a good reference, and I can give them a run for their money, and that gives great comparison, of course. My knowledge from the real track and my knowledge from engineering on the real track, which is also a job I do, is a good feedback for the drivers, and I can actually tell them things to train on, which they can work on lap after lap after lap, and to filter out the annoying habits in your driving style. It's the very small details in the driving style that can make that 1 or 2 tenths difference between the Max Verstappen and a Pierre Gasly, who couldn't get close to within half a second. You know, it's the little bit of feeling.
It's all about details, and you can monitor, and you can just repeat every corner. Maybe you just model 3D render one separate corner and just repeat that corner time.
You can do anything.
Time. Yeah.
I would say Richard is maybe a very good example where he arrived on Macau without any experience there. He took up the competition with guys who've been there for 4 years, Red Bull Junior drivers, super fast drivers, ready for Formula 1, and he arrived there in free practice 1. Only he had the sim as a reference, and he drove into the top 6, if I was right, top 5, top 5. And top 5 on Macau, where like 20 or 25 competitors are driving on the track, which is 2 minutes, not even wider than 3 or 4 meters sometimes. It's nerve-wracking. It's the scariest track on earth. And doing that in free practice 1, all based on what he does in the sim,
it proves that it works.
It proves that it works,
yeah.
Definitely.
Sophia, did you been to Adrenaline Experience?
Yeah, I've been there. I've been especially at Adrenaline Experience now, also in Kerkhof, which is very close by. I've also visited them in Gilterij at the Pro Sim. The Pro Sim they have is mainly directed to Formula cars. They're working on GT versions. But yeah, I mean, it's getting so precise that they have a Formula sim, and you need to build a GT sim to create the realism of a GT car. So I mean, yeah, it's getting crazier and crazier. I mean, when I started in Formula cars, I remember I was doing like a touring car, Toka 2.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if you just think about how long that's been and what has happened in those years, yeah, I'm working on my way now. Also, I mean, I've got a lot of experience. So, in the last 20 years of my racing career, I don't use a sim on tracks like Zandvoort, Spa, which I know so well. But I'm coming to a point now where I'm saying, yeah, maybe I need to update my sim and use it for more than just the track knowledge, which I used it more in the last couple of years the most for, and really start training more also on simulators on the tracks that I know already so well, because it gets so realistic and it gets more to real truth. Because I found in the past that I was actually doing stuff in games that wasn't completely the way it was in real time, that got me off guard in real time. But yeah. Now, I mean, now that everything's get laser scanned, you don't have that gap anymore. So now you can start really training and working your way and improving yourself, because that's what you still need to do. Even after 20 years in motor racing, you still need to improve every day.
Yeah, improve yourself. And maybe, do you think there's a future for yourself of being a simulator training, but then from the real world part, so like the opposite world, like you started? Do you think there's a future for you as well?
Yeah, it's definitely something to look into. I mean, we've been together with at Adrenaline Experience with Women on Track, a program that we did for the FIA, where I coached the girls and coached also from real life. And I mean, I always love it to sit together with Atze and discuss like the two worlds and my vision and his vision. It's such an interesting world, and I mean, if you see what potential lies for the future, it's I mean, my career ends somewhere. So yeah, it's definitely things I look at. I'm not here without a reason, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something I look out for the future.
Bono, a couple of years ago, you were headline news because of your win at the E-Race Formula E Las Vegas. What will the future bring in terms of the whole esports sim racing world? Because there was a lot of money involved over the, but I think that's just the beginning point, right?
Yeah, it was basically the first proper big championship that started it off. So Formula E did a championship with a prize pot of 1 million. Basically quite a big start off.
1 million, yeah.
So quite a big starting point, you know. But it was basically the first championship by a real motorsport championship. So Formula E picked it up. Then F1 followed, so every basically big championship is wanting to do something with it. Now you see Le Mans, you see F1, you see NASCAR does stuff. So all of these teams and all these championships are picking it up, and the prize money keeps increasing every year. So the viewership goes up as well. So it's looking good. Hopefully more and more of these championships, because as a competitor, that's what you live for. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to perform on the big stage as well. So hopefully it keeps going like that. And then
do you actually do more championships, or do you do, as for me in real racing, I just focus on GT cars? But do you do Formula cars, NASCAR?
Yeah,
whatever you can do.
You just do whatever comes by. So wherever there's money or whatever, where you can get exposure as well is really important. Then you just jump into it. So you have to be quite on it as a driver. You can't just focus really on one type of driving style. It's always that you have to adapt and just adapt your whole driving style to another car. And driving a GT car compared to a F1 car is a completely different world. It's so much heavier, it's so much slower on the straights. Braking takes twice as long, so the driving style is completely different per car.
You're now a McLaren Shadow driver, right? What does that mean?
It's basically that I'm part of the McLaren eSports program, so I drive basically any competition for them, mainly F1 eSports, where we're focused on. So that's the big F1 organized championship, which has about 500,000 prize money, so it's quite a big championship, probably the biggest one in terms of exposure at the moment. I wouldn't say it's an actually proper sim like the ones that we have here, like the R Factors or the iRacings and stuff like that. It's basically based on the F1 games from Codemasters, which is made more for the general public, so everybody can play it. You can play it with a controller and stuff like that, so everybody can jump in. It also means that there's a lot more people trying to qualify for it, so that basically the whole competition is quite insane. It's nothing like the real F1 where the cars are different and stuff like that, so here it's all about the driver. If you are 1/10 down in qualifying, you lose 10 positions. It's that insane of a competition, so the preparation that you have to do for it is full time commitment, basically 8 hours a day, and if you don't do it, you just get slaughtered because every detail matters.
Wow. Atze, you, besides working for Adrenaline Control and Experience, you are the team manager of Team Redline as well, right?
Director.
Okay, what's director of Team Redline? What does that mean?
Team Redline is an online team where we focus on sim racing. We like to call ourselves the most successful sim racing team in the world, and that is because we won the most titles of every other team out there. Bono is part of Team Redline, Max Verstappen is part of Team Redline, Lando Norris is part of Team Redline, so we have some characters from online races, like Bono has been seen as the greatest of all time in R Factor. We had Gregor Hutu, who was an iRacing legend. Those are the two main platforms in sim racing. And with Team Redline, we just focus on winning, basically. We want to win the biggest competitions. We won Formula E with Bono, but we also finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th in that competition. So basically, we took pretty much all of the prize pool there as a team, and that's what we work for. And this is the future of eSport, like you heard before. It's getting bigger and bigger. Sim racing is still small compared to the big games like FIFA or League of Legends and whatever they play nowadays. But sim racing, yeah, it's closer to real racing than any other sports game, and also that has been discussed before. So sim racing, it actually translates the skills to real racing, and you see nowadays that real racers are using sim racing so much lately that it's not the sim racers who are the best anymore. It's actually the real racers, the Formula 1 drivers. When they enter a competition, they actually start winning there. They're gonna beat the professional sim racers nowadays. That's how crazy they are as a driver. But it says a lot about the realism of those games, like R-Factor, like iRacing, and they're doing an amazing job. So they actually should keep pushing this, and we need to push these competitions to a higher level, because $1 million is not enough yet.
Are there any questions from the room? We've got a couple of minutes left. Questions for... Yeah, there's a question over there. If you can... Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, you do. You can't do it all by yourself. Especially with our team Redline now, we have like 50 guys in the team.
60,
something like that.
60.
Yeah.
60 contracted drivers.
Because it's not just about turning on your PC and driving laps very quick. It's about building a setup as well, and like finding the very last detail in the setup that gives you this half a tenth advantage, and in the end that gives you the advantage over the rest. So especially like I talked about before with F1, F1 eSports, where it is about the very last detail because the competition is probably the biggest and most competitive. Like I said, 1/10 in qualifying can mean 10 positions on the grid, so it's very important to have the right people around you who help you with the setup and stuff like that. And there's good teamwork that you both, or the whole team, just puts every bit of effort into it to make that final little bit of difference.
Yeah, for us it's a whole lot different. We've got about 5 to 6 people around a car, but they do tire changes, they clean the car, they do the setup, because I mean, in a game you just press a button and it changes the setup, but we need to put the car on the scales, it needs to be measured, the wheels, the camber, the toes, everything needs to be done by mechanics. So we have, by default, mechanics working on the car, an engineer working out the data, which will probably you guys have as well, that are analyzing the data and seeing where you can improve. And I think that's the same thing, because that's the data you get out of the car and you start analyzing it. And that's for us really important, because we have limited time on track compared to sim racing, where you can do a million laps. We've got limited time, basically also cost-wise. If you take a good test day with a cup car like this, it'll easily cost about 10,000 euros to just run a day with 1 or 2 sets of new tires. So yeah, that makes it from sim racing a big difference as well. So we're limited in time, so we take a lot of time also with the engineer for analyzing, whereas maybe in sim racing there's just more keep running and keep practicing. We simply don't have that luxury to do it, because budget is limited, unless you have like some Russian oligarch behind you, then maybe it's different, but still it is limited.
Good, thank you. I think that's all time we have for today. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause. Xavier, Bono, and Atze. Thank you, guys.